All right, so let's go ahead and do a continuation of loops. So loops.cpp, and I'm just going to do this really quick. You'll notice the date. I'm actually in my office right now. I wanted to make sure I had this before I started traveling. So this was recorded before I left. And loop examples. All right, include iostream using namespace std int main return 0. So if you remember, we can go ahead and create an say num and set it to 0, and then we'll have a while loop while num is less than 10. Cout num hello world and line, and then we do num, we have to increment num. So now if we run this, make run, we get 0 through 9. And if we wanted to go from 1 to 10, well, we could change this here, go 1 to 11, for example, make run, and that'll get us from 1 to 10. We could also, if we wanted to leave this at 0 and this here at 10 for some reason, we could just add 1 here just so it displays it correctly. And it goes from 1 to 10. It displays that even though the value of num is still just 1 less. So I'm going to go back here to 11 and actually start at 1. And then you also remember that we could actually go an infinite number of times. We can prompt to see if the user wants to display the next number. And so for this, we did a bool quit loop. And I'll set this, I'll initialize this to false. And then we did have a char, quit char. And we went in here and this was not quit loop. Because again, this has to be, if this is all true, then it will continue doing the loop. Since we're setting it to false, we want to check to see if it's the opposite of this. So that will be false, which will make it true, which will continue. And then in here, we can do it after we increment the num. It doesn't really matter, but it may matter on your program. Cout, do you want to quit? We don't need an end line there. Cin, quit char. And then we did if quit char is equal to y, or quit char is equal to capital Y. Then we will just set quit loop equal to true. And this will work. So let's go ahead, at least I hope it'll work. Make run. Do I want to quit? No, no. I can enter any letter. Once I enter a Y, it quits. Now, if a user wants to enter more than a single letter, well, we can just do it as a string. Include string. And now instead of a char, we make this a string. And now we can still leave it at quit char, or we can just say quit string. Quit string. And then quit string. And again, because it's a string, we have to convert these to double quotes because single quotes won't work. And now we can also do quit, oops, I forgot quit string. Quit string is equal to yes, or quit string is equal to yes, or any combination thereof. Quit string is equal to yes. So now if we run it, make run. Do I want to quit? No. I can enter a string, but once I enter yes, then it quits. Or if I enter yes, it'll quit. So this is another way of using string to test to see if somebody wants to quit. And we were setting this quit loop equal to true. And so this is probably the preferable method. You have a Boolean value there that you check, and then you change the value. Another way is you can use the continue or the break options. Num is, and we can keep going if num is less than, or while num is less than 11. So I'm starting at 1. Only here, instead of doing quit loop true, I just do a break. And so I don't actually need that there because I am no longer testing the Boolean. And so now if I run this, make run, it will run until I hit 10, and then it will quit. Or if I hit Y, it will break out of whatever I'm doing, and it will not run any more of the loop. It will be exactly the same as setting that Boolean, just using break. And then continue, if you remember continue, that will skip that execution. So if we put continue here, we would need to say move this up here on indent. And if we, do you want to quit this, or do you want to skip this loop? So we'll just skip that iteration. Now, if we do make run, do we want to skip this loop? No. Okay, prints out 1. Do you want to skip? No. Prints out 2. If we hit yes, notice it didn't print out 3. And we'll do yes again. Didn't print out 4. Now we say no, it prints out 3. So why is it printing out 3? We were skipping those individual ones. Well, we're still incrementing num down here. And so if you actually want to skip it, you could do num plus plus, and so you still keep that counter going. So let me go and interrupt, make, run. Do I want to skip? No. Do I want to skip? No. Let's say I skip this and I skip this, and now if I do not skip that, notice it is now a 5 instead of a 3. It's because I'm still keeping that counter going here. So that brings up the question of, well, what if I keep skipping? Eventually it will just end. Let me run this again. I'll just keep saying skip that loop, and it will eventually end. Because I'm still incrementing num, I still have that check there. And so it's still going to, even though it's continuing that execution and it's just skipping the rest of this, it's still incrementing num, and it's still checking that the next time it gets to the beginning of the while loop. So with this, you can do all sorts of stuff. You can, a lot of times people will put Y pipe yes to indicate which options to type in there to skip. Sometimes you can have a default option, and that would be under this else. You would have an else, it would do something else if you wanted to. In that case, a lot of times they will highlight that option in there, and no type of thing. And then if they just don't enter that, then it will be the default. And that's it's a common thing to see in applications, to have a default option selected if you don't enter anything or you don't enter the correct values. So the last type of loop I wanted to talk about was the do while loop. And so this, a while loop, when it enters, it checks the execution, or it checks the condition. If the condition is true, i.e. num is less than 1, it will do the stuff in there. Then it will increment it, then it will check again. And as long as that's true, then it does the stuff in there. Sometimes you may want something to run just once, or at least once. So let me go ahead and undo a lot of this and go back here. Let's see that. So we're back to our good old hello world, to where it's just printing out the number and hello world, and then it increments it. We can change this to a do and get rid of this. Do while num is less than 11. And I need a semicolon. So now what that says is do the code above there, run this at least once, and then check to see if this condition is met. If that condition is met, no longer do, or not met, no longer do anything else. So if we run this, we may need to adjust it slightly. Make run. We don't need to adjust it. So it is running it once. Since we're starting at 1, it prints it out, it increments it, then it checks. And if that is true, then it will go back up here, run the do again, do that, increment it, and it will keep doing it. So this is functionally the same as this. So these two are functionally the same. The difference is this executes and then it checks. So even if this is not true, while num is less than negative 11, this means that it's still going to print out whatever num is and then check. Notice it prints out once, and then we're checking while num is less than negative 11. Obviously it's not, it's greater than that, and it will not run it again. So a do while means that it will execute everything in there once at least, and then check the condition. I'll be honest, I don't use do whiles too much. I like the standard while loops because it's, to me, conceptually, it's easier for me to wrap my head around. Whereas do while, you have to be careful because you may not want that to run under certain conditions, but this guarantees that that will always run at least once before it checks the condition. So those are the two different types of loops. You can play around with them. They're used quite a lot. Don't forget about your for loops. So I just wanted to I wanted to try something and make these videos shorter so that then you can jump around and pick up information. And so I will go and record another video where we do a couple of examples of loops. So I hope you enjoyed this short little look into the while and do while loops. And thanks for listening.